The 2018 video game Call of Cthulhu, developed by Cyanide and published by Focus Home Interactive, is a detective RPG that masterfully weaves the cosmic dread of H.P. Lovecraft into an original interactive narrative. Unlike a direct adaptation of Lovecraft's seminal short story, the game draws heavily from the tabletop RPG of the same name. Crafting a fresh mystery within the familiar sanity-eroding universe, players step into the shoes of Edward Pierce, a World War I veteran and private investigator whose haunted past and cynical present are set against a backdrop of ancient cosmic horrors. Over the course of 14 chapters, Pierce's investigation into a mysterious family death on a remote island off the coast of Boston unravels a conspiracy involving elders' gods, a desperate cult, and the true meaning of sanity itself. The core of the atmosphere lies in psychological horror, where fear is derived from psychological unease rather than cheap jump scares. As Pierce encounters paranormal phenomenon and forbidden knowledge, his sanity meter decreases, which triggers unsettling visual and auditory changes. The screen distorts, whispers can be heard, and sanity-fueled hallucinations begin to bleed into reality. The investigation-based gameplay reinforces the psychological terror. Players must examine eerie clues like disturbing paintings, occult texts, and gruesome scenes, piecing together the narrative while simultaneously losing their grip on reality. The audio is a crucial element in building the unsettling atmosphere. The constant lapping of water, the creaking of old buildings, and the mournful cries of gulls on dark water create an impressive, isolated feel. The soundtrack avoids a cinematic score for much of the game, instead of using subtle, low-key pieces of ambient and tension-building music that swell at critical moments to maximize impact. The game's visual design is centered on creating a sense of decay and otherworldly strangeness. A thick, perpetual fog blankets dark water, limiting visibility and contributing to a disorienting, claustrophobic feeling of isolation. The visual palette is dominated by dark, muted color, with light sources like lanterns and electric lamps creating high-contrast shadows that hide untold horrors. As Pierce's sanity deteriorates, the visuals become more surreal. The game opens in 1924 Boston, introducing us to the protagonist, Edward Pierce. A worn-out alcoholic private eye, Pierce is suffering from reoccurring vivid nightmares linked to his traumatic experiences in the war. When a client named Stephen Webster enters his office, the investigation is set in motion. Webster, a wealthy businessman, asks Pierce to look into the mysterious death of his daughter, Sarah Hawkins, and her family in a fire on Darkwater Island. The police have dismissed that incident as an accident caused by the supposedly deranged Sarah. But Webster suspects foul play. The only clue is a bizarre, unsettling painting Sarah sent to her father shortly before her death. Pierce's initial analysis of the painting, a haunting depiction of a monstrous, deep-sea entity, plants the seeds of his descent into madness. The chapter serves as a tutorial introducing the game's investigation mechanics. Pierce examines the artwork and related case files, gaining initial insight and assigning skill points to abilities like investigation, eloquence, and psychology. The path of Darkwater is set and Pierce boards a ship, his cynical realism challenged by the supernatural implications of Sarah's final work. Pierce arrives on the blighted insular island of Darkwater. The once thriving whaling community is now a shadow of its former self, its docks derelict, and its inhabitants suspicious of outsiders. A local police officer, Officer Bradley, provides a cursory summary of the Hawkins case, reinforcing the official story of Sarah's supposed madness. However, interactions with other townsfolk, like the surly Captain Fitzroy and the bootlegger Cat Baker, suggest a deeper, more sinister history. The island's dark past is slowly revealed. A terrible famine in 1847 was supposedly averted by a miraculous catch, brought back by the last remaining whaling ship, the Scylla. Pierce discovers that the Hawkins family death and the recent unsettling incidents plaguing the island are connected to this local legend. The chapter also establishes the oppressive atmospheric dread that will permeate the entire game, setting the stage for Pierce's confrontation with cosmic forces. Driven by the address on the package containing Sarah's paintings, Pierce makes his way to Warehouse 36, an area now controlled by Cat Baker's gang. After navigating through the hostile territory, Pierce discovers that the warehouse was used for occult rituals. Pierce heads to the scorched remains of the Hawkins mansion, the epicenter of the initial fire. Inside, using his detective skills, he reconstructs the events of the fire. This mechanic involves piecing together scattered clues to form a coherent picture of the past. The reconstruction reveals a violent argument between Charles and Sarah, but also evidence contradicting the police's conclusion of an accidental fire. The investigation indicates that Sarah was struggling with her sanity, painting disturbing prophetic images, and that her husband was a key figure in the island's cult. In the attic, Pierce discovers more of Sarah's work, including a painting of himself suggesting she had foreseen his arrival. He also finds a hidden passage leading to a secret area containing occult objects and a map showing coordinates related to the island. The investigation reveals that Charles Hawkins, Sarah's husband, was involved with the occult. A photo of Charles, Captain Fitzroy, and another man confirms their secretive dealings. This chapter deepens the mystery, suggesting that the Hawkins family was embroiled in something far more ancient and powerful than a simple family tragedy. Pierce and Bradley sneak their way through the tunnels, seeing the occultists doing strange rituals. When they are finally reuniting after getting separated, going different paths, they come across the leader of the cult. He has an octopus-like arm and covered in robes until his face is barely visible. Bradley shoots him a few times, and he just shrugs the bullets off like they're nothing. The cultist gets mad and slams the wall and causes a massive earthquake, making the mountain collapse all around him. Pierce must escape. While running through all the cave tunnels, he finally gets pinned by a rock and blacks out. Pierce is institutionalized at the Riverside Institute, a psychiatric hospital on the island run by the sinister Dr. Fuller. Here the psychological horror takes center stage. Pierce interacts with Marie Colden, a nurse who is suspicious of Fuller's methods and explores the asylum's dark secrets. He discovers that Fuller has been conducting gruesome experiments on his patients, using a strange oil-like substance derived from a massive sea creature, the Leviathan. This chapter also involves a mind-bending sequence where Pierce experiences events through Mary's eyes, an out-of-body experience. Triggered by occult knowledge, the asylum becomes a microcosm of the island's decay, where science and myth converge. In a terrifying synthesis, Pierce learns that Sarah's mental state was affected by the Leviathan's influence, and that Fuller was attempting to harness its power. This is a key horror and stealth chapter where Pierce, along with Drake, if rescued, confronts a dimensional shambler. This sequence is a tense chase requiring Pierce to hide and navigate the environment to survive. The shambler is a manifestation of the island's escalating supernatural activity and serves as a powerful obstacle in Pierce's path. Depending on the player's choices, Drake may or may not survive this encounter, which has a significant impact on the endings. Pierce returns to town and seeks out Algernon Drake's bookstore, using the knowledge gained in the prison. The shop contains a vast collection of occult literature and clues. Here Pierce can delve deeper into the Cthulhu mythos, reading forbidden texts that increase his occultism skill, but also erode his sanity. A key objective is to locate the Necronomicon, which contains vital information about the upcoming ritual. The chapter emphasizes the importance of investigation and the trade-off between knowledge and sanity. The more Pierce knows, the more vulnerable he becomes to the cosmic horrors he is investigating. Pierce finds himself in the island's prison, navigating through a chaotic riot. The prison setting presents moral dilemmas and opportunities for stealth, as Pierce must choose his alliances carefully. Drake reveals more about the island's cult, the purpose of sarin paintings, and the impending ritual. The final third of the game plunges Pierce into the heart of the conspiracy at Alabaster Point, a location of cyclopean architecture and ancient rituals. These chapters blend investigation, stealth, and psychological horror as Pierce navigates a series of increasingly bizarre and dangerous environments. He confronts the cult directly, learns the full scope of their plan, and discovers the truth about Sarah Hawkins and the Leviathan. The plot is revealed: the Leviathan, a star spawn of Cthulhu, manipulated the islanders into worshipping it. Sarah Hawkins, the Oracle, was a key figure, channeling her visions into prophetic paintings. The cult, led by Captain Fitzroy, seeks to resurrect a greater power, and Pierce, a survivor of the Lost Battalion of World War I, and therefore susceptible to cosmic influence, and he is the unwitting catalyst for this resurrection. The final chapters see Pierce confronting the cult and the Deep Ones, the aquatic, monstrous inhabitants of Darkwater. The game culminates in a decisive confrontation at Alabaster Point, Pierce having navigated a treacherous journey and confronted the horrifying reality of Cthulhu mythos. is faced with 4 possible endings, all shaped by his actions, sanity, and relationship with key NPCs. The 2018 Call of Cthulhu game is a masterclass in atmospheric horror and narrative design, faithfully capturing the spirit of Lovecraft's work while expanding its lore in creative ways. It's not a tale of heroic victory, but rather a slow, agonizing descent into madness, where the protagonist's fragile grasp of reality is constantly tested. Each chapter builds upon the last, escalating from a routine private investigation to a world-shattering confrontation with cosmic horror. Pierce's journey through Darkwater, the Hawkins Mansion, the Asylum, and the ancient ruins of Alabastar Point is a powerful exploration of themes like insanity, nihilism, and the futility of human ambition in the face of ancient and different gods. Ultimately, the story is not about defeating evil, but about surviving it, failing to, and the different endings perfectly encapsulate this core Lovecraftian philosophy. The game is a journey, not just to an island of madness, but into the very fabric of madness itself, with Pierce serving as the tragic tour guide.